Okay, wanted to show you a couple of different ways of doing these. The one with the kind of posts like this with the little feet that are kind of swept out a little bit, have this kind of nice little curve to them. That's going to start with a coil that's a little bit on the thicker side. Normally we go about the thickness of our pinky or maybe #2 pencil, somewhere in that area, or the size of a wooden loop tool. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and cut the posts a little bit longer than I think it needs to be. Okay, so you can see the difference in size, okay, compared to this one. All right, and then what I'm going to do so that I have all three of them the same, I'm just going to use that first one to kind of measure, and I've got my three like this. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to tap it on one end. Okay, I'm going to do this repeatedly for a few times. Okay, and eventually what happens is you end up with this kind of little smushed gumdrop kind of design. And then I'm going to go ahead and roll it. Okay, smooth those out. Any wrinkles or anything like that, we want that to be nice and clean and smooth. I like to make them really nice and smooth just because it kind of reminds me of something that grows out of the ground. You're not going to have weird wrinkles or something like that. Something that's organic and natural, okay, so that it kind of looks nice and clean and smooth in that sense. I said clean and smooth a bunch of times, but that's okay. All right, so we're going to do this to all three. Round those out so we've got these cute little cones to begin with. Okay, so you guys can see those. All right, and then it would just be a matter of figuring out where they go, score, slip, and smooth, and attach those on there, something like that, if that's the kind that you want to do. Then what I did is I just kind of curled the outside edges of these. Okay, score, slip, and smooth them on. I'll show you how to do that. You should be familiar with that at this point. Okay, the one with the swept foot design like that, okay, go back to our coils again, make them a little bit longer than, or a little bit thicker than you normally would, okay, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut these, hope you guys can see this, at a pretty sharp angle, okay, cut the first edge and then the second edge like so, okay, so that you're left with kind of like a trapezoid shaped coil, if you will. All right, I'm going to go ahead and do that to the other two. I'm just eyeballing it. I'm not using the exact same angle. If you want to, you could place your other coil here so that you can then use that one as a template. But that usually doesn't work out all that great. So I think that'll work. And then it's just a matter of, because you get a little bit of this flattening and that kind of stuff, but just kind of round it off. And then again, score, slip, and smooth. And then I like having them go in all the same direction, score, slip, and smooth, score, slip, smooth, okay? And then that way you have them attached like this, okay? So that's the swept ones there. And you can use your imagination on how to make the infinity symbol or the little loop ones. But I'm gonna get on to the square ones with the little twist in them that I like so much. Okay, for this one, I like using a rib as well, just to kind of define the edges. Okay, but this time what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a really large coil. Okay, this is normal pinky size, and you can see the difference in the thickness. It's about twice as thick. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to flatten out one side, a second side, and a fourth side. Okay, so I'm going to go around a couple of times. Try to make these as square as possible. I would say probably about, if you wanted to put a measurement on it, no thicker than 1 inch thick, probably closer to like 3/4 of an inch thick, okay? If you need to, you can kind of toss it at an angle, and that'll help stretch the clay a little bit, and it'll also thin it out. We want to make this as even as possible, okay? I've got a little bit of a seam here that's created when I was rolling that out, okay? But I'm going to use the flat side of a blue rib because softer the clay, softer the rib. And then I'm going to flip it over. I'm going to do that to all 4 sides. What this does is this kind of sharpens that edge. Now it's going to soften up a little bit as we're working with it. It's going to round itself out. But if we leave it rounded, it doesn't get as defined as I would like, at least from my design. I think it looks better if it's got a nice sharp edge to it, okay? And so I'm gonna give it one last little roll over here. If one side's gotten, that side got a little bit wider there, okay? So now, make sure we got this nice and clean. Okay, there you go. So now you can see that nice sharp edge defined pretty well, okay? Then I'm gonna go ahead and cut these to the size that I want. Not measuring it, I'm not using, I mean, if you wanna use a ruler and measure it to a certain size, by all means, go for it. But what I would also suggest is make them a little bit longer than you think they need to be, okay? So if I were just to use these square pegs and have them out here, okay, this bowl would be sitting up pretty high, okay? But because I'm gonna take and I'm gonna grab the two ends, okay, like this, and then I'm just gonna twist, it is going to cause these to shorten just a little bit, okay? And again, I'm getting a little bit of cracking in here. Clay got a little bit dry. Add a little bit of water with your fingers, okay? But it gives you a nice, cool little twisted design. So like that. So I'm gonna do that to all three of these. And if I kind of messed up some of the edges, I can go back in and I can clean those up. Okay, cool thing about clay, nothing is set in stone, as odd as that may sound. Okay, you can always change things. You can always make things different as you're working with them. Nothing is set in stone until it gets, you know, glazed or bisque fired. At that point, then you're kind of pretty much stuck with what you got. Okay, so I've got my three little twisted designs. Okay, and we'll go ahead and score slip and smooth those on in just a second.